Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I am thrilled to introduce Rachel Katz, a wellness coach and the host of the Fuller Life podcast. With a passion for helping individuals achieve their best self through the lens of faith, Rachel brings a unique perspective to the world of health and wellness. On her podcast, Rachel dives into topics such as body issues, manifestation, and the intersection of faith and wellness. With a wealth of knowledge and experience in the wellness space, Rachel provides valuable insights and practical tips for listeners to implement into their own lives. I was so excited when you reached out because you're a perfect fit for our focus on health and wellness here on the Lovely Digest podcast. So, welcome.
So much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, of course. So to start off, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you became interested in wellness coaching?
Yeah, so I have a long story, so I'll try to make it as short as possible.
That's
I've
okay.
definitely had my ups and downs on my wellness journey, and I've gone through so many different journeys. I feel like I go through a different spiritual journey like every year. But basically, my journey started off in high school. That was when I just started to be interested in weight loss and fitness and wanting to be more fit and feed myself with better foods. And I started going on that path, which quickly turned into an obsession. And I ended up developing an eating disorder for many, many years. And then my first year of college was when I finally started to heal from my unhealthy relationship with food. And it was also during this time when I realized that my eating disorder wasn't just this obsession with food, but it was a mental health disorder and a form of OCD. So when I started to heal from one form of this mental health disorder, I realized that I still was really struggling with my mental health and had a lot of anxiety, was struggling with a lot of OCD and depression. And I really was on a mission to heal myself naturally and holistically. I knew that I didn't want to take medication. So that was when I really got interested in nutrition and yoga in order to heal holistically from everything that I was struggling with. So I took my first nutrition class in college and I fell in love, and I decided to switch my major from, I was on a completely different path. I wanted to work in the music industry and be a singer and a songwriter. And I completely did a 360 and decided to study nutrition instead and become a nutritionist. So just really getting, I think, proper education helped me heal my relationship with food because there's just so much misinformation out there when it comes to nutrition and wellness in general. So I think getting that education and looking at it from a science perspective really just helped me heal and develop a healthier relationship with food. And after college, I got my yoga certification. Yoga was such a big part in my healing as well. And I wanted to incorporate both of those things when helping clients. And after I graduated college, at this point, all throughout college, I was in a really unhealthy, toxic, abusive relationship. So when we broke up literally, I think 2 months before my college graduation. And it was during this time when I feel like my journey really began, because up until this point, I was like, okay, I healed my relationship with food and my body, and my mental health is so much better. I am healed. But I did not realize up until this point how wellness goes so much deeper than just your relationship with food and what you put into your body and how you're moving your body. It goes so much deeper than that. It's how are you treating yourself? What are your relationships like? What's your relationship like with yourself? How much do you love yourself? How much trauma are you carrying in your body? What is your nervous system like and how is it operating? All of these things are so important when it comes to feeling your best. And it wasn't until I went on this self-love and spiritual journey and healing journey and really deepen my faith and my relationship with God and my relationship with myself, most importantly, that I really, really discovered my power and really felt like I had healed. And yeah, that's kind of what led me to starting my coaching practice and not just focusing on nutrition, but wellness as a whole.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. And I love talking about how everything kind of impacts each other and comes together. And as you it sounds like as you evolved in the nutritional aspect and finding like your passion and your potential future career in college, that it helped you to kind of grow out of other areas where you weren't also up leveling. Did you notice that or see that in other areas of your life other than your relationship as well, where it was just kind of like, oh, I don't align with these other parts anymore? And how did you kind of navigate through all the different changes going on?
Yeah, well, I think that's such a good point is that everything is related, right? So I tell people all the time, if you have an unhealthy relationship with food, you most likely also have an unhealthy relationship with other people, an unhealthy relationship with yourself, with money, with your whole life in general. It really all goes back to your relationship with yourself. So I think the more you heal your relationship with yourself, that's key to healing everything else because it's all connected and it all goes back to you.
I agree. Yeah, and so when you're working with your clients, is that something that you kind of start out at? Is like, um, do you view that as like the intersection, like your relationship to yourself versus like I guess you could view it maybe as a circle. Is there an analogy that you use or something to view that with your clients?
Yeah, so I actually market myself and my business as helping you heal your relationship with yourself so that you can heal your relationship with food, your body, other people. So it's hard to explain sometimes when people come to me and they're like, "What do you do?" Because I'm like, I can help you with your relationships. I can help you with your relationship with food. I can help you with body image, your relationship with yourself and self-love because it's really all connected.
Mm,
And I've personally gone through every single one of those journeys and realized how much they're all connected and the power of healing all of your relationships in every area of your life. So that's why I market myself in that way as helping you heal your relationship with yourself because that's where I like to start. And it's really interesting because I'll have a lot of clients who find me, as a nutritionist and they're like, okay, I want to lose weight. That's why they come to me. And I don't immediately tell them, like, okay, we're not going to focus on that. I'm just like, yeah, yeah, totally. I can help you with that. And it's so funny. But at the end of our time working together, literally all of my clients who come for me for weight loss will be like, I realized that I thought that what I wanted to do was lose weight, but I actually wanted to love myself and learn how to treat myself nicely and learn how to love my body and appreciate my body. And that's what you've given me. And that's what I've learned through our time together. And it's so powerful to see that mindset shift that they all have of
mm,
realizing that their weight was never the problem. It was how much they loved themselves and appreciated themselves.
that's so sweet. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I just had a question, but I lost it. I think something that I'm really interested in too is going back to the faith thing is how do you use that? Like where does that come in to use that with your clients, or is this kind of like a more personal thing, like having that element of spirituality and something that I believe in and think of when in terms of health is having a connection to something, even if you don't believe in God, something bigger than yourself. And how did you see that play a role in your healing journey and your clients as well?
Yeah, so for me personally, that was one of the biggest parts of my journey was just strengthening my faith and finding that connection. And I was in the spiritual world for a long time. And I think after a while, I realized that there were a lot of things with new age spirituality that personally didn't align with me as I went deeper into my journey. And just having a relationship in God has been so healing for me and is what I lean on for literally everything. And I feel like it's why I'm alive and why I've been able to make it through all of the things that I went through. And I never I really have an open mind when it comes to that. So I think that everyone has different beliefs and it's beautiful, but like you said, I think just having some sort of belief in something greater than yourself is almost essential to your overall wellness. And it's just such a big part of wellness and healing that relationship with yourself and believing that good things are possible for you and that you deserve to be happy. With that being said, I do like to bring that into my sessions, depending on who my client is, right? So I want it to feel aligned. And if it's not aligned, then I don't really bring that up. But I do have a lot of clients. Like I work with a lot of women who have eating disorders. And for one of my clients I can think of off the bat, she was also kind of went through the same journey with her faith as me. And we ended up talking about it in our sessions. And she kind of fell off of her faith. And then from talking to me, she got reintroduced to her faith
Mm.
and was able to heal so much her relationship with food and herself through that. And it was just such a beautiful thing to witness. So I think I do tend to attract people that are already like have those beliefs and are on that path. And it's really cool to see that play into their journey, but it's not something that it has to feel aligned, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I think there's a difference between like someone who does believe but maybe needs a little push to get back on track and like reimagine their relationship with God and versus someone who's just like completely closed off to that. It might be more detrimental. If someone what like does believe in God but doesn't really know where to start, like doesn't really feel aligned with maybe going to a traditional church, what are some ways that you would maybe recommend that someone could bring more life into this their spiritual practice, or like what are some ways that you practice spirituality and incorporate that into your life?
So I think everyone's journey is so different and so personal, which is really so cool. It's so cool to hear everybody's journey and how they got introduced to their faith and what they believe in. For me personally, I don't like to put myself in a category. So sometimes it's hard to explain to people when they're like, well, you say that you believe in God. What's your faith? And I'm like, I don't fit into like a traditional religion and in a box. Like I grew up Jewish and I always had a really close relationship with God, even though when I think about it, both of my parents are not super religious. It's more of a cultural thing. So my mom is Israeli, she's from Israel. So being Jewish and celebrating holidays and everything is what I grew up with, and it's really important to my mom. But when it comes to actually praying and having a relationship with God and building that relationship, that was never something that I really witnessed. So I don't know where it came from. I literally was always just like, even when I was a little girl, I would pray every morning and pray every night. And it was just something that I formed on my own and found comfort in. But as I grew older and found new age spirituality and started practicing yoga and getting into crystals and meditation and the law of attraction and all of these things, I also was into that for a little bit, and that kind of veered me away from my relationship with God. And then when I was going through my lowest lows, one of my friends invited me to go to church, and I never went to church in my life. And I was like, sure, why not? I'm literally open to anything at this point. And I fell in love, and I ended up going to that church every single week for like a year and a half until COVID hit and everything shut down. I went by myself and I found so much comfort in going to church and Jesus. And so I feel like my faith is so confusing for a lot of people because I'm like, I'm Jewish, but I'm Christian, but I also like yoga and meditation. And I don't resonate with a lot of new age spirituality. So I think it's all about just finding what works for you and not feeling like you have to place yourself in a box of what society is telling you that you should do. And I think that's kind of, in my opinion, why people veer away from God is because as a society, like there's so much pressure to fit into a box. And if you're not super Christian and you're not super religious and you're not Orthodox Jewish, then it kind of turns people away and turns people off from building a relationship with God, which I think is really sad. Um,
Mm.
but God, at the end of the day, is not religion and can't be put into a box. God is just love. And I hope for everybody to find that and find their own definition of what that means to them and build their own relationship with whatever God means to them. I think it's just so important. Did that answer your question? I feel like I was
Yes. No,
going.
that was so beautiful too. And I love the way you just described all of that because it's something that I still struggle with talking about. Like when someone asks, or I just went to the doctor and I had to fill out a new form and they ask like what religion you practice and you have to check one of the boxes. And I was like, I guess like I'm closely related to Christian. However, I feel like there's such a stigma around the word Christian and there's all these ties to like horrible things that have happened. And it's like, I feel like you can't, once you start connecting God and like people, it gets like the line gets very blurry of like what is God, and people just connect God to the church that they go to rather than something that you can have a relationship to. And I also agree with like a lot of the new age spirituality practices is a lot of the focus is on the individual, and I've really struggled with that because while yes, the individuals is so important and only you can like control you and your relationship and your own actions and your relationship to life and God, community is so much more important too. And like the community aspect of like a church is something that I personally really miss sometimes. I'll go to church with my family and I love doing that, but I don't live super close to them anymore. So I don't go every single week. And that's something that, like, okay, like I can watch church online or do it, do whatever, like do something by myself. That feels good. But, having that community, and that's why I think like working with a coach can be really helpful too, that also believes in God, or working with a therapist that shares a similar faith so you can have like these kinds of discussions because I think this is so important to keep like your faith alive and exploring things. And I think just the act of like exploring your relationship to spirituality is just so much fun and so important to maintaining an invigorating like lifestyle and health and some meaning to life.
I agree. I love that. And I think what you mentioned is so important. I just want to touch upon that. Like focusing on yourself is kind of what New Age spirituality has turned into a little bit. And I think that's so damaging in so many ways because like you said, of course, I just said it, your relationship with yourself is everything. But when you put all that pressure on you to have full responsibility of how your life is supposed to look.
Mhm.
And this goes along with law of attraction and manifestation. And while, yes, I believe in manifestation, the way that I believe in it has changed. And I don't think that you're 100% responsible for everything that happens to you. I
Mhm.
think that there's things that we're meant to go through to become the person that we're supposed to be. And not everything is always going to be sunshine and roses and positive. And when you have that outlook of like everything is happening is because of me and my thoughts and my beliefs and whatever it is, that's just so much pressure on yourself and can honestly make you sick because you end up being so stressed out and feeling like when everything goes wrong, it's your fault. And when you have that connection to something greater than yourself and you have that faith, it just releases so much of that because you know that you're constantly being protected and that everything is always working out for you, even if you can't see it and it's not going the way that you thought that it should go.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it kind of takes you out of like this enclosed just box of like, oh, I have to act a certain way or I have to think a certain way. Like having angry thoughts and like bad thoughts are just totally normal and part of the human experience. And it's more about learning to move through those emotions, I think, and not necessarily maintain a positive attitude, but return to it like a positive attitude or a humorous attitude or something with like a little more like positivity to it rather than like staying in that place of fear. And that's like been my goal recently with having Crohn's disease is okay, having Crohn's disease, like I wouldn't choose that, but I also can't change that. And my actions might have led me to get Crohn's disease. However, like I can't harp on that and worry about that all the time. I have to move into that place of, oh, well, I'm here now and it's made me into the healthiest I've ever been. And it's done all these positive things for me. So I'm going to choose to view those rather than, learn from the bad things, but eventually like move on.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And that's such a beautiful outlook. And it really, really helps on your journey, I'm sure.
It does. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I want to be mindful of your time. But one last question, like what kind of goals do you typically work on with your clients? And can you walk us through maybe like a typical session or maybe the first session or like an intro call, or how do you just get started to looking at the big picture?
Yeah, so I like to look at I like to go deep and then kind of peel the layers instead of going superficial and then getting deep with most of my clients. And because I work with women on so many different things, like I have clients where we're just focusing on relationships, I have clients where we're just focusing on nutrition and weight loss, I have clients where we're just working on finding body acceptance and loving yourself. So I work with women on so many different issues, also just health issues like hormone imbalances and things like that. It looks so different. So everything is so personalized to every client. But I do have a basic, formula that I follow, especially in our initial first session. But I just ask them questions to help them understand themselves and go deeper. And a lot of my clients will tell me, even after our first session, like, wow, I never thought of things like this. Like, I've been struggling with my relationship with food and my body for so long, and nobody has ever asked me these questions. And I've never asked myself these questions. And even just being asked those questions and understanding why they have such an unhealthy relationship with food and their body and themselves is so helpful. Just having that awareness and understanding, like, oh, so this is why I've been struggling with this for so long, makes it easier to then heal.
I feel like everyone has the answers within themselves. It's just sometimes taking another person and their insight to be able to help you dig down to that part of yourself and peel away the layers, like you said.
Sure. I think the first step to healing is awareness.
Yeah. Oh, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll include the links below to your own show, but if you want to tell people where they can come find you, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, my podcast is the Full Life by Rachel podcast on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere that podcasts can be found. My website is also thefulllifebyrachel.com. And my Instagram is Rachel _ KATZ_.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you and I love this conversation.
Of course, this was so fun. Thank you.